Hi everyone, welcome to the Psychology of Dating podcast. My name's Nadine Newkirk. I'm a clinical psychologist and dating coach. And for today's episode, I'm really excited to introduce a guest speaker, Isabella Rosenthal. And she is a manifestation coach who I'm really excited to give us some tips on the mindset and how your internal work can help shift your dating experience. So, Isabella, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Nadine. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about that intersection between manifestation and dating. A little bit about myself. So, my background is like Nadine in clinical psychology, and I've kind of recently found myself in this manifestation space. I guess in clinical psychology, a lot of our time and energy is spent working with really kind of complex mental health challenges. And, whilst that is interesting to work with and a real passion, I feel like it really only speaks to one, story of the human experience. And, I've always had a passion for positive psychology and understanding, what makes humans thrive, what makes a life that's really fulfilling. So I think this is where I have kind of found myself in the manifestation space because it is a little bit more around, what makes how to become the creator of your life versus how do I just alleviate suffering.
Mm. I love that because for so many people I speak to, dating, and I know I felt this is something to get through. It's like, you just want to get to the partner at the end, and that's like the gold at the end of the rainbow. But the dating experience just has to be kind of feels like it has to be awful. And I love that idea of thinking, how could we actually thrive in dating and make it more of a enjoyable, peaceful, or exciting process along the way?
Absolutely. I think, especially in the media, I'm definitely hearing that dating can be a really heavy experience and feels like this really hard challenge in
Mm.
2025. So, if you're feeling that dating is a lot harder now, I just want to reassure you it's not just you, it's a collective experience. And
Mm.
I think people are feeling that gap between, really craving love but then actually finding it and having all of those mindset challenges and beliefs that it's too hard to date, or the person that I want isn't going to be out there, or I can't afford to date at the moment, or I'm just going to be ghosted and breadcrumbed and all those words that
Mhm.
we're hearing at the moment. So dating can be an incredible, exciting experience. So I think manifestation is a really lovely tool that we can use to help us be able to open our perspective and enjoy the journey, not just the
Mhm.
destination.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I hear from a lot of people where there's kind of these internal thoughts of like the apps aren't working, they're not getting matches, the algorithm's against them. There's kind of no good people left, the dating pool's, difficult in this age. And, that is an experience. And we also know there's another side to things. And, there are some things that we can control. Um, for listeners, I know manifestation's quite a buzzword, just like mindfulness. Like, how would you define manifestation?
Sure. So I think when I mention the word manifestation to most people, their mind goes to like vision boards and like
Mhm.
magical thinking, which, for some people, that's what manifestation is. But really, I think manifestation at its core is the process of aligning your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors with the outcome that you're wanting. So it's not kind of just this spiritual idea, but rather it's deeply linked to our brain's wiring. And I guess manifestation really makes sense when you think and realize that your brain is constantly updating its kind of like programming or internal software. And once the code of your brain changes, your beliefs, your emotions, and your assumptions are also going to change with it. So, like what we talk about in psychology, when our internal world changes, how we think and feel, our external world also shifts. So I like to think about manifestation and explore it from more of a neuroscience perspective, where there is lots of scientific evidence that's actually in support of it.
Mm. And definitely, I know this could be experience in dating. If you've had certain difficult experiences, then you can encode that in your brain in the neurons. And then the next time you think about going on a date, it's like the slippery slide of your brain's neurons. It just goes down the path of it's not going to work out, it's going to be a bad date. And it's hard to remember that the person or the people that you dated in the past, they actually have no link to the next future people you're going to meet. And there's new possibilities, but it's hard for the brain to kind of see that in that moment. Hmm.
Absolutely. I think we've all had that experience of having our heart broken or being ghosted. And, we tell ourselves, I'm never going to do that again, right? And even though we're meeting someone completely different, who's giving us all the green flags, our brain and our body respond as if it's that same person in the past. And, I think neuroscience helps us be able to understand that we can change that. We don't have to live like that forever. It is challenging, as with kind of any, rewiring of the brain, but we don't have to be living in this constant state of disappointment, anticipation, and fear.
Mm. Yeah, that really makes me think how when I started seeing my dating coach and I started shifting my mindset and my internal kind of thoughts and experiences, I actually experienced dates differently and I viewed my past dating history differently as well. Like there were people that I'd put in a category of like, oh, too boring or there's something wrong. And I kind of re-looked and I was like, actually, they were great opportunities that I feel like I'd missed and now I was starting to look into them. And it was really
Um,
interesting. It wasn't just like the external circumstance changing, like I had to change my inner experience to get a shift. Mhm.
Absolutely. And in that way, it sounds like Nadine, you're doing the work and you're kind of changing how you were thinking and feeling inside didn't automatically mean that everyone on the outside started to shift to
Mhm.
match that. Those people and those experiences were there the whole time. You just
Mm.
weren't able to perceive it in that way. And, I'm really excited to share with you in a little bit some of the underlying mechanisms for why that's the case. Because, you know, as I said before, manifestation is not just magical thinking. It
Mhm.
is, the process of rewiring our brain. And, I think one of the biggest processes here is something called neuroplasticity. Do you know what neuroplasticity is, Nadine?
Well, my understanding of it is that our brain is constantly learning and, updating its kind of neural connections and pathways. And for example, just as much if we've experienced a really difficult relationship experience or trauma, our brain can go into survival responses. We can also learn to go into kind of safety responses and things like that. Like our brain can update and learn. Um,
Yeah,
and it's constantly changing. I'm pretty sure up until we die, right? That we have
yeah,
neuroplasticity. Hmm.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Hmm.
So, when we are kind of shifting our mindset, we are allowing our brain, I guess, to prime our experiences that we're wanting to experience. So, if we're wanting to have positive, exciting, fulfilling dating experiences, we actually need to start with the inside so that we can see it. Because all the signs might be, that, the love of your life, the fun date, all of the kind of fun stuff that comes with dating that might already exist in your life, but you might not see it just yet.
Hmm. Kind of makes me think of like, yeah, walking in a virtual reality or something, or you've got a veil and manifestations almost like lifting that up to be able to see kind of more positive experiences or kind of what you're looking for. Hmm.
Absolutely. And I mean, just from like a fulfillment perspective, it's a lot, it's a better place to be existing knowing that everything that we want already exists
Hmm.
rather than existing in lack mentality where we think that we're going to have to struggle for everything. I know for me, I'd much rather live in the reality where anything is possible and I have all these really exciting opportunities awaiting me rather than approaching it from oh, I'm going to have to work so hard and everything's going to be a struggle for me to experience that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned there's some kind of mechanisms behind this
Yeah,
neuroplasticity and manifestation. Could you tell us a bit
yeah.
more about it?
For sure. And, I think the first thing that I want to share with you is, when I was saying manifestation before is the process of aligning your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. I think that word alignment is really, really important. So I like to use the analogy of a GPS, right? So hopefully, for some of us, we've got GPSs in our car, we've got Google Maps. And when we're wanting to go into a new destination, or perhaps a destination that we haven't been to before, we have to type the destination into our GPS. But just typing the destination into the GPS doesn't necessarily mean we get to our destination, right? We've still got to have petrol in the car. We've still got to turn it on. We've got to make sure our car's in the right gear. We've got to have our car aligned in the direction that we're trying to go to. So similarly with manifestation, the first part of it that's really important is having that strong intention. So for a lot of us, we might have that strong intention. We might be going, yeah, I really want to meet the love of my life. And these are all the qualities. And, this is how I want to feel when I'm around them. However, our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors might not be aligned with that. So maybe every time we open an app, our body just feels dread and fear, or maybe numbness. And then maybe we spend all our time complaining with friends and family about how there's no one out there for me. And, maybe in our spare time, our thoughts are just cycling round and round and round, going, there's just not going to be anyone in the dating pool for me. All the good ones are taken. So, whilst we might have a really strong intention, our whole body and our behaviors might be showing that we're not in alignment with it. So, when we're manifesting, whilst it's really important to have the intention, I think the second part, the alignment, is actually what most people struggle with. And it's tough because that's such an unconscious process. Especially if we've been dating for years, we might notice ourselves having the same thoughts over and over again and feeling the same way and even behaving the same way. So maybe even just for some of the listeners at home, we can actually test our alignment in real time. So would it be okay, Nadine, if I just kind of led a little bit of an exercise so that
Yeah, I
everyone
would
can
love that. I'll join
understand?
it.
Okay, cool. So if I could just invite everyone just to settle where you are, close your eyes, and bring to mind your ideal date. Right? Maybe you're envisioning your future love of your life, or just someone who's going to bring fun into your life. Just taking note of what kind of date you might be on, where you are, and what it is that you're doing on this date. Just allowing yourself to build a picture of what this might look like, feel like. And I invite you now just to scan your body from the tip of your head down to your toes, just noticing if you can feel any resistance in your body. Is there any part of you that feels a little bit tight? Or maybe you feel expansive? Can you notice any emotions that are coming up? Maybe feeling excited and eager. Or maybe you're feeling a little bit of doubt or insecurity or frustration, and maybe you're noticing some thoughts of going on. I just don't think that that's going to happen for me. Just taking a moment to understand what it is that your body's communicating to you. When you've got a sense, just bringing your attention back to the present moment. So, if you noticed any resistance, tension, unpleasant emotions, that often signals that we're not in full alignment with what it is that we want. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's actually a really important thing to tune into because it means that we just need to address something. It
Mm,
shows us that there's a reason why what it is that we're looking for, perhaps we haven't been able to find it just yet.
mm. That was lovely. Thank you. I was actually thinking about with my husband what date would I like to do, and I was imagining those bubble tents that are on the edge of like a cliff. An amazing view.
Wow, that
And
would be
I
cool.
yeah, and I realized that, I think for so many people when they're dreaming of their future partner, it's very cognitive. Like they're thinking it through, they're
Mm,
trying to use their brain to be analytical, and this is deal breakers and what I want. And it's probably rare for people to stop and actually tap into that more emotion centers of the brain and actually just that was a short exercise, but just pausing and really visualizing it and being mindful with my emotions, I could actually feel it in my body more. And I feel like it enhanced that joyful kind of feeling. Yeah.
beautiful. And
Hmm.
if you are experiencing joy, then that's great because it's going to increase your motivation to go for what it is that you want.
Mm.
But then if you are noticing a little bit of resistance, it kind of flags maybe, oh, maybe I've got a belief here that's kind of getting in the way, or maybe my nervous system actually needs to settle a little bit. So what I love about this activity is our body can't lie to us.
Mm.
As you said before, dating is such a cognitive process, right? We go with
Mhm.
our lists and our timelines when actually we need to get into our body because our body tells us so much more about where we are and what we're ready for.
Hmm. Definitely. Like I know in the programs I do, some people are often surprised when I do so many skills around emotions and, managing distress or emotion regulation or, they sometimes I get, I don't, you might have this when people see a coach, they want like a definite answer, like, should I go on a date or not? And I'm circling back
Yeah.
to what does your body tell you? How are you feeling? Let's use that as a guide. And
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
exactly. And I think everyone still wants to go, but how do I know? And when will it happen? And how will
Mhm.
it happen? And what I really love about manifestation is that we don't need to know all of those details. We just need to
Mhm.
come back to our intention and align to that.
Mm. Amazing. So when you coach people and help them with manifestation, it sounds like there's like I imagine like a toolkit. Like first of all is also setting up the intention and knowing where you're heading, but then like that analogy with the GPS, you need like the car, like making sure the vehicle's pointing in the right direction, that you've got the accelerator on,
Absolutely.
where's the foot on the brake, like noticing those
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think where it all starts is understanding, what are the processes behind manifestation? Because
Hmm.
I'm a big believer that if you're going to invest in something, you want to have a really strong rationale. And that's what I really love about neuroscience, because it can explain to us exactly what's going on in our mind. And then we can capitalize on that process to help us when it comes to dating. So, when our inner world is aligned, our brain becomes more receptive to the people that we want to be seeing, the behaviors that we're wanting to understand, and the opportunities that we're seeking. And I guess the main structure in our brain that's responsible for this is something called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. And this is a kind of a structure that sits in our brainstem, and it's responsible for filtering all the information that we receive in any one moment. So, if you think about, imagine you're on a date, right? You're meeting someone for the first time. It's often a little bit nerve-wracking, right? You're exposed to millions of signals in any one moment, right? So you're kind of tuning into what it is that they're saying to you, what their facial expressions are doing, what their body language is doing. And then, if you're at a bar or you're at somewhere, busy or loud, you're also trying to kind of monitor what's going on around you. And then you're also monitoring what's inside of you. And it's just so much information.
Mm.
Our brain, yeah, it's millions of signals per second. So our RAS has this really important job of making sure that we're paying attention to what needs to be paid attention to. And the thing is unfortunately, our RAS doesn't pay attention to what we want it to.
Mm.
That would be great if we could just tell it in any one moment, right? I want you to pay attention to all the good stuff that's going on in this moment.
Hmm.
Rather, It kind of pays attention to what our subconscious beliefs are.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you're going into a date going, oh my God, this is just going to be really crap, and I don't think I'm going to like this person, and I think they're so boring, best bet your reticular activating system is only going to filter in that information.
Mm.
Or if you go into a date going, oh my gosh, I've been rejected so much in the past, and I just know that people don't like me as a person or think that I'm unattractive, you are only going to interpret information that aligns with that belief. So effectively, we are just viewing a mirror of our internal world, which is really cruel because then it just reinforces all those beliefs that we have about ourselves. And I think this is why, for a lot of us, if we're noticing we're in the dating scene for a while, we're not kind of getting the outcomes that we want, it's because we're just repeatedly having the same experience over and over and over again. And, from that perspective, I really understand why people just give up. Why would you want to
Mm.
have the same experience over and over and over again?
It makes me think of trying to remember the term, on social media like Facebook and things where you have one kind of belief or opinion and then you get fed kind of reels and information that just fits that, and it becomes quite a silo, and you don't really get, that opportunity to see different opinions or different experiences or different sides of it. And if, there's that subconscious belief already there, then we're just kind of picking up that data from the world. Hmm.
Absolutely. And, our brain just likes to go with whatever is comfortable. So often, we're swiping on the apps, we're going to pick people who just kind of give us the same vibe as what we've had in the past, or might even mirror what our parents were like growing
Mm.
up. So, in that way, we're just engaging with the system to have the same experience over and over again. And when we're not getting any new information, our brain is not rewiring in any way. In fact, it's just strengthening the same neural pathways that we've always had.
Yeah, I often say to people like our brain will choose comfort and familiarity, even if it's not the most helpful for us, like the familiar devil over the angel. It's
Absolutely. And our brain, its main priority is being able to protect and keep us safe. So, in a way, our reticular activating system, it's really trying to do us a good job, right? It's going, okay, well, if I can make sure I'm only filtering in all the threats on this day, then I have a better job of keeping me safe. However, in doing that with all the energy that it takes to do that, it's going to be filtering out all the other neutral and pleasant evidence that suggests that this person might actually be someone that is worth investing a little bit more energy in or going on that second date with.
hmm Yeah. And I guess the good news for people listening, if you're there and sitting like, oh my God, that's me, and like, oh no, I'm repeating the experiences, that like awareness is the first step, as you were saying, and the brain is always changing. There's always new learning, and there's tools, just like you were talking about, to shift and help that reticular activating system start to pick in new bits of information and data. Hmm.
Absolutely. And, as you were asking before, Nadine, in coaching, that's what we're doing. We're trying to access the subconscious, the parts of us that maybe we don't consciously think about. And we're trying to shift some of those patterns so that we can start seeing what it is that we want. Not because we're magically thinking those, people into existence, but because they're already there. We just haven't paid attention to it just yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's so much intersection, more than I realized at first, with manifestation, with psychology as well. Like there's Venn diagrams. I didn't even realize there was an overlap, and there's actually quite a large amount. Hmm.
Absolutely. I think, and, just to put it out there for those who have experienced trauma, right? And, maybe have had attachment trauma growing up or have been in some awful relationships, this takes time. right?
Mm-hmm.
And it often does involve psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think about manifestation as the kind of movement toward or the creation part, but you do need psychology to sometimes be able to work through some of those limiting beliefs in order to then be able to move forward. So I think for a lot of us who are feeling a little bit stuck or feeling like they've got to like a crossroads, maybe it is time to start looking into what some of those past experiences that you've had and some of the beliefs that you have about yourself and the dating experience that might be influencing your perception of reality.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's tempting kind of, learning things like this. It's like started to have then criticism. I was like, why does my reticular activating system do this? Or like, what's wrong with me? And, quotes,
Mm,
and remembering that actually, especially if you've experienced trauma or adverse experience, that was adaptive and very helpful and necessary to just be picking out threats and dangers to, keep you safe, emotionally safe or physically safe. And sometimes, even when we're safe later, it just hasn't quite updated yet. But yeah,
absolutely.
it can be tempting to go into that critical voice rather than compassion for that part. Hmm.
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So I really want to emphasize, like, this is not something that you do a vision board and all of a sudden, you have manifested your person, right? This is a
Hmm.
process, and I think really borrows from and needs psychology in that way, especially for those who have experienced trauma in the past. And, another point about the reticular activating system is, it interprets and filters based on beliefs, but it also does that based on our emotions. So
Hmm.
if we are in a fight or flight state in our body, right, which I think it's really common that if we're going on a first date or we really like someone and there's a lot of pressure to want them to like you too, we can notice our body feeling really fearful and anxious. And if we're going into a date or dating or even answering text messages or setting up the next date, if we are responding from that state, naturally we're going to be interpreting things that are neutral as negative or critical.
Hmm.
So I think it's a really common experience, if you're dating and maybe have a little bit more anxiety, if someone hasn't messaged you back for a few hours, naturally you're going to be interpreting that as, oh my gosh, they don't like me and, they don't have time for me. When actually there might be infinite other kind of reasons that they might not have messaged back. Or,
Hmm.
if you're on a date with someone and they're kind of a little bit more quiet, your reticular activating system might be suggesting to you, oh, they're bored by me. When
Hmm.
actually, they might be really interested and they might have asked really curious questions about you, but maybe they're just a little bit tired. So they haven't been able
Hmm.
to respond with the normal level of, excitement.
Hmm. Or maybe they're so excited that they're intimidated and they don't know what to say next.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Some people are just really shy, or maybe their communication isn't their best skill.
Hmm.
So, yeah, what I really like about knowing what our reticular activation system does is it slows it down so that we can then, like, just question our interpretations a little bit.
Hmm.
I think even just acknowledging, and one of my favorite quotes is, the probability that you are experiencing reality as it objectively is zero.
Hmm. Yep. Our brain
It's
is very
humbling.
powerful and loves to project all these kind of fill the blank
Yeah.
and interpretations and
Exactly. And like it's actually such powerful knowledge because even if you have the worst day, right, where you just go, oh my God, I don't feel like I answered questions right. And I feel like I just didn't present myself in the way that I usually do. Like that is just the way that your brain has filtered the information.
mm-hmm.
And that is not objectively true. And the other
Hmm.
person is going to have a whole different way of interpreting that's based on their beliefs about themselves. So it kind of
Hmm.
makes it less personal in that way when we can understand what our brain is doing in any moment.
Yep. And we're all in it together. We all have human brains, and every brain does this.
Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And when we can know that even if we're approaching it from a little bit of an anxious perspective, when we know that other people also have their own beliefs about themselves and about others and are interpreting based in their way, we know it's not just about us, that there's two completely different people with different backgrounds, different brain processes approaching the same situation.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
look, maybe an example is if you've ever been on a date and you go, oh my gosh, that was the worst date ever. And their message, when you get home and say, oh, I had the best time today. And
Mm.
you kind of sit back and you're like, huh? Were you on the same date as me?
I had one
Or
of those.
maybe, yeah, or maybe
Yep.
you had the other side, right, where you were like,
Hmm.
yeah, that was such an incredible day and I felt this connection. And then you get home and they just ghost you, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think that we're experiencing this all the time in the dating space.
Yep. And other spaces too, like thinking about interviews that can happen, like meeting a new colleague, or you think you've made a new friend out, or yeah.
Mm, exactly. Yeah. So, I think even from our chat today, it's really easy to understand manifestation is a really big topic
Hmm.
and, has so many different things that we do underneath it. But I kind of came up with some 5 quick manifestation hacks for dating that
That'd
I
be
thought could
very
be
helpful. Hmm.
interesting, just to give you a sense of like some things that you can take away from this episode for those who maybe are wanting to incorporate a little bit more manifestation into their dating at the moment.
Hmm.
So, the first one is all about being really clear on your intention, right? That we can't manifest without having an intention. And as I said before, some people are going to be really clear on exactly what they want, and that's great. But I encourage you to also have a little think about, well, why is it that I want this very specific type of person? Because often when we understand the why, we might notice that it's not actually in alignment with us.
Hmm. Do you have an example of that, Pearl?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, for example, it might be really important to you that, I want to meet someone who earns X amount of income.
Hmm.
And, that's great. Like you're allowed to want to meet someone with a certain level of income, but asking yourself, well, why is it that I want that? Well, I want to feel financially secure. And
Mm.
then from that point, you can actually question yourself, well, just because someone earns that income doesn't necessarily mean that they are a good saver or that
Mm.
they have the same values of you and want to support you in that way. Or, what happens if they lose their job or they want to change their career? So being able to be really clear on why it is that you want it helps you be able to potentially phrase the intention clearer. So if I'm wanting to meet someone with X salary, I might say, okay, well, I really want someone who is kind of financially secure and can afford to go on holidays with me. And then that way you can actually phrase it in that way rather than having it a very specific amount, which,
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get what the intention is behind it. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
That makes me think of the difference between values and goals, and values something the way you want to live your life. It's kind of
Mm,
ongoing. It's can be more general, but you can apply in lots of different situations, whereas a goal might be very
mm,
specific and kind of very tied to just one specific thing.
mm.
And yeah, if you value, kind of financial stability, then that can look differently. Someone might earn a little bit less, but they're actually really stable and really good with money, and then that actually meets that need.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. So it's getting to the why behind your intention. And, as we were doing before, checking that alignment, right? So you want to be, once you have your intention, allowing your body to tell you how close or far away am I from this intention. The more resistance and the more your behavior suggests otherwise, it's going to be a little bit further away. So that's the first part, setting your intention.
Hmm.
The second part, or second pointer, as we've already talked about, is addressing the limiting beliefs. We all have them, every single person. We've got limiting beliefs. And, for most of us, all of our limiting beliefs are formed before we're 10 years old. Right? Because before we're 10, that's where we're starting to learn about, ourselves and how people are going to approach us and, treat us in relationships. So we need to be able to understand, number one, what those are, and also be able to shift them a little bit or kind of question them so that our RAS isn't using that for information to project onto other people. So, whether it is the you pick coaching or psychology or even things like clinical hypnotherapy, there's so many wonderful kind of treatments and supports out there that can help you with this, because the reality is, unless you address those limiting beliefs, you're probably still going to be attracting the same type of person and kind of not having that fulfilling experience that dating can be.
Like as much as your foot's on the accelerator of the car, there's another foot on the brake, and it's kind of making it a lot slower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Number three is using visualization. So in coaching,
This is
we
where the
use
vision
a
board
lot of
comes
visualization. Yeah,
in.
absolutely. This is the one part where the vision boards come
Mhm.
in. So visualization is such a powerful tool. And I guess the main function or use of visualization in manifestation coaching is its connection from the conscious to the subconscious, right? So remember, our reticular activating system is operating from a subconscious level. So somehow we need to get in there and change the coding a little bit.
Mhm.
And visualization is an incredible tool for this. Whether it's us, sitting down and visualizing meeting the perfect person, or visualizing being able to handle dates really well, or visualizing us regulating our body and responding back in a way that's most authentic to ourselves. So that visualization process tells our brain that we have already done it. I'm sure you've probably heard a little bit of research about visualization and seen its
Mhm.
uses in sport, particularly where, a lot
Yeah.
of professional athletes are using visualization because the brain actually can't determine the difference between real life and visualizing. So we can use this as a tool to harness the power of, recoding our subconscious to show us what it is that we want to see and to practice how we're going to approach dating even before we've gone on the date.
Mm. And I imagine like that's where people could, if they have different types of visualizations, like someone might find it easy to close their eyes and do a mindfulness one. Maybe someone else might want to draw it out, or that's where maybe, cutting pictures and doing the visualization board can be helpful, tapping to that creative kind of emotional part of the brain. Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. Because for some of us, it's really hard to build that picture in our mind. But
Hmm.
when we can have, visuals of, the type of family, if that's something we're wanting to manifest, is or kind of how we want to feel with our partner, or what kind of activities we want to do on dates, right? When we can have pictures that reflect that feeling inside of us, we learn how to activate it and
Hmm.
again, retrain our reticular activating system to show us what it is that we want to be seeing. So, maybe if you had on your vision board, and you really like golf, right? So maybe you've
Hmm.
got some pictures of couples playing golf. And, maybe the next time you're scrolling through Hinge, you see like someone with a picture with golf clubs,
Hmm.
right? And maybe that person isn't someone you would usually go for, but now that you see the golf clubs, your Raz has picked it up and gone, wow, maybe they're going to be
Hmm.
able to play golf with me. That's cool.
Hmm.
So again, being able to prime our subconscious to show us what's already there and what it is that we want.
Because if you've already imagined like that could be exciting, you could activate that exciting feeling when you see them on the picture, and that motivates action to then kind of swipe and
Yeah,
like initiate conversation when normally you might not. Hmm.
exactly. That's right.
Mm.
So visualization, there's so many different ways that you can do it. I'd encourage people to look into it.
Hmm. Good excuse for a craft afternoon.
Exactly. The fourth tip is all about regulating your nervous system all throughout the dating process, right? If you're noticing you're picking up your phone, whether it's you're swiping through, apps or you're going to a speed dating event or whatever it is that you're doing, understandably, you're going to be a little bit nervous, but it's going to be really important for you to settle your body down before you go in. Because if we are in our fight or flight, what I was saying before is we're just going to be limiting and narrowing our perception. So if we notice we're on apps scrolling hours a day, we're going to every single speed dating event that there is, and there's still no one, I would
Mm,
be questioning what's going on in your body. Are you
mm,
disconnected from your body? Are you kind of just looking at the door ready to leave the whole time? So when
mhm,
we can tell our body, actually, you're safe, you can calm your nervous system down, then our rise is able to show us a greater variety of experiences, not just identifying threats that exist or
mm.
possible threats.
Yeah, that makes me think of like incorporating self-care into dating and how I used to have like a really busy job and it was like a lot of face-to-face talking with other people, so I was quite tired and I used to go straight from that to a date. They didn't go so well because I was just fatigued. I was like, I just want to be in a dark room and not speak to anyone.
Of
And then I
course.
tweaked it a bit where I love yoga and I would go to a yoga class before the date. And I found that my
Mm,
experience was very different. And I guess because, regulating the nervous system in that yoga then actually helped my Raz pick up different things on the date. Hmm.
exactly. Yeah, so a really simple thing to do, that can really make or break the date and help
Hmm.
you collect more information to see whether you want to go on another date.
Mm.
Or even like just to get to the process of, do I want to give this person a chance? Do I want to respond to their message?
Hmm.
Might I, swipe on someone who isn't usually my type, but I'm just more open because my body is more settled.
Mm.
Mm,
And even if it is like a challenging date or a quote bad date, if your
yeah,
nervous system's settled before, that's going to make it a lot easier to manage it or to,
for
not be as
sure.
kind of thrown by that experience. Hmm.
Exactly. Bad dates happen. This is
Hmm.
not a
Part of
magic solution,
it.
right? But it's just capitalizing on some kind of mechanisms and processes that can help us be more effective in that space.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I guess the final tip I have is all about like the content that you're consuming. So,
Hmm.
on TikTok, I notice there is a lot of kind of man trashing and women trashing that's going on, and a lot of conversation about happening about Australia being like a low effort, society in terms of dating and other trends that are coming up around ghosting. And if you are watching and listening to this every single day, you know what that's doing, right? That is
Mm.
just sending information into your RAS, telling you what to pick up.
Mm.
So if you are serious about dating and you have a really clear intention to meet someone, I would be doing a content cleanse. It's something that's really easy and quick to do. Going through, your TikTok, people who you follow, or, accounts that you have on Instagram, and removing those accounts that aren't in alignment with what it is that you're wanting. And
Mm.
maybe it is that you want to follow new accounts where there are healthy relationships and people talk about exciting experiences that they're having in their dating experience. So I think it's something really simple and easy that we can all do from home to give us the best opportunity to not miss the opportunities that are in front of us.
Mm. And I imagine even you could follow, accounts where, they help your nervous system settle down. You learn new tricks or tools for that. And then that's part of your toolkit, for manifesting or helping in your dating experience. Hmm.
Exactly. Or maybe it's following, podcasts like
Hmm.
ours today,
Hmm.
that talk about it in a different perspective rather than the same stories that you hear over and over again, because that is really, really powerful for our subconscious. Our subconscious is constantly listening and attuning to what's going on around us. And naturally, with repetition, it's going to strengthen. So we
Mm.
want to strengthen new pathways with different perspectives that help us when it comes to dating.
Mm. Well, on that note, if someone's doing their content cleanse and they want to know more about you, your podcast, your Instagram, or any events, like how can the listeners contact you?
Sure. So maybe we can put it in the show notes, but my
Absolutely.
Instagram is Manifest with Isabella. And on there, you can see my website. Um, I'm running 8-week small group manifestation experiences at the moment, which go into everything that we've been talking about in detail. The next group I'll be running, I think, starts on the 13th of January, but
Mhm.
they are really small size just because I want to have a lot of time and space for everyone to talk. So it's a really lovely way to meet other people who are interested in this and have the same goal and intention. So if you're interested in that, getting quick because there's very limited spaces. Otherwise, follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be posting some free resources there so that you can learn a little bit more about manifestation.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Isabella. It was a pleasure having you here. I've certainly learnt more about manifestation knowing you and also today. So, yeah, it's been really helpful. I know the other listeners will find it helpful too.
Wow. Thank you, Nadine. It's been a pleasure.